Okay. Hello, everyone. So my presentation is going to be slightly different to the other ESR presentations. I think I've told most of you already what I'm kind of doing, but yeah, this will be a summary. So basically, about 6 months ago, my supervisor suggested that I split my PhD, so it's 50% pure science, 50% science communication research. So by science communication research, I don't just mean doing outreach projects, saying they're fun, and then that's it. I mean actually doing research into science communication methodology, what works, what doesn't, and what we can learn from that. So this, obviously, as I was embarking on a new part of my PhD, it meant that I had to come up with a new science communication research question. So to do this, I looked at what I was already studying. So what I'd already kind of done was looking at this dynamic triggering process on Sierra Negra and working out if it was actually dynamic triggering as it was proposed or coincidental local seismic activity, which is often the case when it comes to kind of suspected dynamic triggering activity. So I used various statistical methods, and luckily we concluded that it was dynamic triggering. But the next stage was working out where this dynamic triggering was happening on the Sierra Negra caldera and what this can mean for its evolution and eruption history leading up to its 2018 eruption. So I looked at this research and I thought, as I'm working in Ireland, why should I communicate about volcanoes and earthquakes, particularly a volcano which is the other side of the world, to Ireland, to the Irish public? And it's very unlikely that they'll ever, there's no active volcanoes on Ireland. The highest magnitude earthquake we've experienced since we've had the Irish seismic network has been 4.4, which has obviously not really caused any sort of damage. So why should I bother communicating my research to them when they might want to talk about something which maybe is more impactful to them? So this has led me to formulating my question, which is, can an understanding of geophysics facilitate interdisciplinary connections, enabling an increase in science fluency? So what exactly does this mean? This means if I am communicating about volcanoes and earthquakes and geophysics, will this give the general public the tools and confidence to engage with science that they are interested in a meaningful way and increase their confidence in engaging with the scientific community, asking scientists questions, and building their confidence overall so that they can maybe engage with topics such as climate change, cancer research, any sort of science that does mean something to them. So to do this, I've designed 3 outreach projects. Obviously, these outreach projects require a lot of willing volunteers, and it's definitely a different approach to the research I've done already because a lot of it is qualitative. There's some factors you need to consider when you're working with people compared to when you're just working with data. So I'll kind of go over the different parts now. So my first project is the Seismo Orchestra. So if you did go to our last SPIN workshop in Pitlochry, then you remember that on the last day I kind of forced you to do this exercise, and it was Heiner who suggested it. It was a brilliant he put together this really interesting presentation, and for those that weren't there, basically people were divided into sections of the world. So a table would be the ocean, another table would be Africa, another table would be Europe, and this presentation played, and then it gave instructions as to what you were meant to do. So for instance, the ocean is always, as we know, is always making kind of seismic noise with microseisms and everything like that. So the ocean table was always making some sort of rustling sound. And we had the voice recorder app on an iPad, which was showing that there's always some sort of level of seismic noise because the ocean is always active and present, whereas things like maybe a tornado making land on the US or an elephant stampede in Africa, they would come and go and would create different sort of seismic activity. So just for those that weren't here, I will play a little bit of it, hopefully. No, I won't. Why is the video not playing?
Just move the pointer to this screen.
Okay. Where's the pointer? Oh no.
The other way.
The other way?
All right.
Oh, okay. It's still not playing. Okay, never mind. It's a good video. It's on the SPIN YouTube channel if you want to have a look at it. But kind of moving on from this, taking this as kind of my inspiration, I thought that this was a very cool activity because it wasn't a lot of the science communication which involves music is the aim of the communicating the music to the public is to communicate to the public or the people listening to the music about science, whereas this was communicating to the people actually playing the music, which is quite good because it means that if you're working with, for instance, an orchestra, it's maybe a lot more easier to collect data because you're working with a small group of people and you can survey them, whereas if you're just performing a musical piece to an audience, it might be quite hard to capture their thoughts before and after listening to the musical piece. So, I'm working with the Royal Irish Academy of Music and the UCD Symphony Orchestra. So I'm working with 3 different orchestras. They're all of different levels. So the Royal Irish Academy of Music are all like university music students. They have a very high level of musical skill. UCD Symphony Orchestra also very high level, but they are made up of people from different degree programs. So more of a broad kind of background in terms of scientific understanding. So just the timeline for this. So how I'm collecting data is surveys and focus groups. So I want to be asking questions about what is their general understanding of seismology, and then also what is their confidence in engaging with science. Do they enjoy science? What do they think is their current scientific level? So that's something I'll be doing before and after kind of this entire project with them. But it will be running from September to kind of January next year. But that's just because it fits in with the orchestra schedules. So one thing that you have to consider when you're working with people is ethics forms, which is something which is quite detailed, and maybe the closest similarity would be like putting together a very detailed field campaign. So you don't have to do this if you're working with over 18s, but I'm working with, so one of the Royal Irish Academy of Music orchestras will have like 5 17-year-olds, which means I do have to fill in this form. And I have to get like a police vetting certificate to make sure I'm not a weirdo. And, there's things to think about like insurance and, all this sort of stuff that you have to fill in. But the actual modules, so obviously people learn in different ways. So it's kind of broken down. So each module or session will be 40 minutes. There'll be a few minutes of just me talking to them. I know this isn't particularly effective at actually letting people learn as just speaking to them. But that is just to introduce the topic, what we're covering, and then there'll be audio and visual exercises. There'll be physical exercises to kind of hopefully get across the message in a variety of ways so that everyone has a chance of trying to learn what I'm talking about. And then in a group activity, so something to think about is, as I'm sure you all know, when you're communicating your science, if you're communicating to a group of children compared to a group of teenagers, to a group of adults, you always have to think about who you're communicating to. But this kind of goes into specifics, so I've never been in an orchestra before, but apparently they have a very kind of strict hierarchy where the conductor is kind of telling them what to do. They do what he wants, when he wants, and how he wants. And there's also hierarchy within the instruments. So there'll be like a first flute and a second flute. And although it's kind of unspoken, the first flute is better than the second flute. It's all very complicated. But so this is something I wanted to break down as well, because if they feel like they just have to do what the conductor wants, then we might not actually get some positive feedback about kind of building up this symphony about seismic waves and seismology and things like that. So all the activities are designed to kind of mix people together that they might not usually talk to, make sure that they're comfortable with sharing feedback. So the end goal is to kind of perform this symphony about seismic waves, and hopefully it will be mainly based on the orchestra's views and opinions and what they've learnt through these sessions. So these modules cover, because they're only 40 minutes each, I can't go into a huge amount of detail about seismology, but things like what are sound waves, what are seismic waves, something which they might be able to build kind of a connection towards because they might be quite familiar with sound waves, and then also kind of does island experience earthquakes to bring something that they relate to into their life, and then what is a seismometer, how are seismic data presented and discussed. So things like this. And yeah, so these are the kind of modules. It's going to kind of last over a few months, and then they're going to perform this symphony, hopefully in front of their friends and family. And I've got like a composer on board as well. He's actually kind of co-running this project with me, so he's very on board with this sort of stuff. So he's very happy to compose that piece. And then hopefully when I do a survey at the beginning and at the end with these different groups, I will hopefully have some useful results that I can look at. So the next project is one that I'm very excited about. It's called SwiftQuake. I don't know if any of you, probably a lot of you have heard of this, but last year when Taylor Swift performed in Seattle, there was a lot of news articles about how her fans created an earthquake and how it was really exciting and how they generated a magnitude 2.3 and all this stuff. So I thought, what if we could repeat that in Dublin, but with the added knowledge and ability to kind of get the fans excited about it, run a traditional and a social media campaign to generate this SwiftQuake. So she's performing at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin next month, at the very end of the next month. So this is something we're working towards, and it's quite soon, so this is kind of taken up most of my time at the moment. So yes, I've just recently started a social media campaign and a kickoff meeting, because as well as having this social media and science communication side of it, we do actually want to get some cool data from it as well with seismometers. So yes, it's my first very dramatic video. So this is on TikTok, and TikTok is kind of a different style to X and Instagram. TikTok is full of teenagers and children that can be very mean because they're anonymous. So they can say whatever they want. So it's quite daunting uploading to TikTok. So this second video I will play in a minute. But this was actually a follow-up video because I've also mentioned this to a few people. But I uploaded a video introducing this kind of program and campaign, and I was quite naive. It definitely taught me a lot about science communication on TikTok specifically. But I got a few worried comments from fans saying this is really dangerous. Why are you trying to destroy Dublin? You're a psychopath. You know, lovely comments, really. But so I had to make a follow-up video and be like, guys, calm down. This isn't, you're not going to create an earthquake that's going to destroy the city. I do live in Dublin, so I wouldn't want that to happen. But yeah, so I'm just going to play, hopefully this video will play. No. Hi, me again. I've just come back to answer a few comments and questions that I got from the last video. Firstly, will SwiftQuake be dangerous, and am I trying to create a massive earthquake in Dublin? Absolutely not. Even if all the Swifties in the Aviva Stadium jumped up and down at the same time, this would still not be enough to create any sort of earthquake that could be felt by people. In fact, if you did want to create an earthquake that could be felt by people, you need to detonate at least 295 tons of TNT. Think of it this way: if you drop a stone into a pool of water, then waves will ripple out from where the stone lands. This is the same as if you're jumping up and down. When you're jumping, there will be seismic waves that are radiating out from where you're landing. However, these waves are so sensitive and small that they won't even be felt by anyone standing a metre away from you. The only way to create seismic waves that will be strong enough to be felt by people is if huge parts of the Earth, such as tectonic plates, move and grind against each other. For instance, in 1964, Alaska had a magnitude 9.2 earthquake. And as you can see, the earthquake was here, but this entire area of land had to move and grind and shake to cause this much damage. However, we do have sensors that are sensitive enough to pick up these seismic waves. These are called seismometers, and we need to place them very close to the Aviva Stadium to be able to pick up anything that's going on in there. Now on to the second question: why am I even doing this? Now this is a pretty good thing to ask. So I should start by saying that I'm a PhD researcher, which means it's my job to research things related to seismology and earthquakes. And I thought it would be interesting to know the different types of waves that are produced by Swifties jumping up and down in a very exciting and energetic concert. So to understand this, you need to understand that waves have different frequencies. Frequency refers to how many waves pass a particular point in 1 second. For instance, low frequency would look like this on the top, and high frequency would look like this. So there are only 1 or 2 waves passing in the same amount of time that there are loads of high frequency waves passing. So different things produce waves of different frequencies. For instance, the dart travelling in Dublin, someone playing basketball, and people jumping up and down in a concert would all produce waves of different frequencies. So I think it would be interesting to know the different songs and the different crowd reactions that are created during the Eras tour. For instance, when Taylor is singing her acoustic set compared to when she's maybe performing Shake It Off, or I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, where people are jumping and dancing and it's very high energy. So I hope that all makes sense, but if you have any more comments or questions, then please let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, well, you can go on TikTok and watch it. You download TikTok for this. It's swift.quake.dublin, but I'm basically introducing the concept. So I'm answering 2 questions. One, is this going to be dangerous? And secondly, why am I doing this? Because that was another question I got, because I forgot to mention that I was a PhD student in the first video, so they just thought I was like a stranger that was like, I don't know, some sort of terrorist. So yeah, that was kind of definitely a learning curve for me. But so, wait, there we go. So yes, as I mentioned, we do want to get some cool data from this. We're going to have, so DICE have 63 Raspberry Shakes because we already have quite a good citizen seismology program. So hopefully we're going to use about like 4 or 5 of those. And then we also have 200 smart solos, probably not using all of those. But, 3 or 5 of those would also be good. Plus, maybe infrasound. We're still kind of considering this because it depends a lot on who lets us put seismometers in their garden, where we can place them, if it's a nice day, everything, all these factors. So the Aviva Stadium, if you don't know, is here. It's surrounded by houses. There's a river on one side, a train station, a train line that goes there, a rugby pitch here, and then the rest is all kind of residential. So before I came here, I did kind of scout out the area and see what houses, might be a good fit. So there's like all these gardens of these houses like back onto the stadium. So I mean, putting seismometers in those gardens would be ideal. There's also like a little green patch next to this mini rugby field, which would also be good. So there's a few options, but it's all about, obviously, we want to get some cool data, and we also need to set up a workflow so that we can extract data as quickly as possible, because it would be very cool to be able to say the day after the concert, oh, look what you did, this was really cool, sort of thing. We don't want to wait a while and then talk about it. So the Raspberry Shakes, hopefully we'll be able to stream, so we hopefully, if they're sensitive enough, which I'll touch on in a minute, then we should be able to make some immediate statements. But things like kind of saying, what if we can detect what songs Taylor Swift is performing based on the jumping of her fans, matching the beat, things like that would be really cool to mention as well. So yeah, we have the week before Taylor Swift, Pink, who's another artist, is actually performing. So we're going to be testing the method kind of during her concert, hopefully. So as soon as I get back from Switzerland, I'm going to be knocking on people's doors, hoping they open those doors, and then asking if we can put seismometers in their garden. Well, we will see how many we manage to do. So the final part is my podcast. So I've also told literally everyone about this. But my podcast is called People on Volcanoes. And it's on Spotify and Podbean. And, if you have your phone and you have Spotify, feel free to just scan that right now. But this is a podcast that I started in December, and it wasn't originally part of my PhD, but since I've done this, I've kind of incorporated it. So yes, for this and the Taylor Swift concert, you might be thinking, how are you going to collect data? Because this is, it's a lot harder to survey just fans and stuff like this. So this is going to involve a lot of online ethnography, which is basically analysing social media data. So with the Taylor Swift concert, I'm going to be looking at if my campaign posts kind of generate scientific discussions, if they ask scientific questions in the comments, and kind of trying to engage scientific thought and just seeing if that changes over time. And it's going to be similar with this podcast. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking at a lot of different podcasts, science communication podcasts. So there are quite a few out there. There's like really high budget ones like Houston We Have a Podcast, which is run by NASA, BBC Earth, and then there are some other really good ones as well. I recommend listening to any of these. They're all really cool. But I'm going to be seeing what these podcasts do in terms of their social media activity, and if there's anything I can implement in mine, and if that changes the interaction and engagement I get on my podcast, particularly when it comes to kind of posting my podcast episodes on X and Instagram, and seeing if I can actually generate more engagement, and if there are particular methods that I could recommend to other podcasts if they want to improve their scientific engagement with the community. The main aim of this podcast is to really encourage scientific discussion and collect some cool data about the kind of process of getting a podcast up and running, and then seeing if we can kind of boost social media engagement and what this says about the content of the podcast. So yeah, that's my project. 3 outreach projects, and they've all been designed with, I forgot to say, they've all been designed with science communication experts. So my supervisor, Chris, he's all for this, he's excited for it, but he did say get some other supervisors because I'm not an expert in science communication, so I have enlisted 2 more people on my supervisory team who are experts in this sort of thing, so they've been very helpful. The main aim is to help society build interdisciplinary connections between topics and engage with science in a meaningful way, and data will be collected via surveys, focus groups, and online ethnography. Obviously, there are a lot more ways to collect data, but this is something, obviously, I could explore in the future. So I only have like a year and a bit to really kind of do all of this. So, I can't explore all the methods, but these are kind of, I think, some of the best ones where you can get some meaningful data. So yeah, thank you for listening.